The fifth reading opens with a discussion of how we set the Mishkan up. And we hear about the outer chamber, the inner chamber, the curtain that divides between the two. Chapter 26, verse 31, V'yasisa faroiches techeles v'argomen v'salashoni v'sheish mashzor. Moshe Rabbeinu is instructed by God on how to divide the inside of the tabernacle into two chambers. You're going to have an artisan who will make a partitioning curtain that's woven out of the same material as the lower cover of the Mishkan, of the tabernacle. You're going to have threads comprised of 6 strands of turquoise, purple, scarlet wool, and twined linen. And just like that cover, it's going to be made, Maaseh Cheshev, the work of an artisan, Ya'aseh Oisa Keruvim. It'll be woven with a design of cherubim. They have the appearance of eagles on one side, as Rashi explains to us, and lions on the other. The curtain is going to be 10 cubits tall, 10 cubits wide, and a hand's breadth thick. That's one thick curtain. How's it going to hang? Verse 32, V'nasata oisa al arba amudei shitim. You'll hang it on 4 acacia pillars, the same wood that's used for the boards of the Mishkan. These will be mitzupim zahav. They're going to be coated in gold. Vavehem zahav. The hooks are going to be gold. Al arba adnei chosef. They're going to be set into 4 bases of silver, and unlike the boards, which had 2 tenons on the bottom, these are only going to have 1 each. So it's slightly different from the rest of the boards, a little bit different dimensions, and that's how the curtain's going to be hung. V'nosata sapareches tachas hakrosim. You'll position the curtain just 1 cubit due west, under the clasps, v'hevesa shama mi beis la pareches, and then there on the inner side of the curtain you will bring as aron ha'edus, the ark of testimony. V'hivdiloi ha'pareches lachem. This curtain will serve to separate for you between the outer chamber of the Mishkan and the inner chamber of the Mishkan. The outer chamber is called Kodesh, the holy chamber, and the inner chamber is called Kodesh HaKadoshim, the Holy of Holies. V'nasatas ha'pareches al aron ha'edus b'Kodesh HaKadoshim. You will then place the cover. Remember that? With the cherubim, the gold cherubim, you'll place the cover on top of the Ark of Testimony in the Holy of Holies. And the Ark and its cover are going to be the only furnishings. Nothing else will exist in that Holy of Holies. And now that the Torah has told us how to divide the rooms and how to make a holy and a Holy of Holy, and the Torah told us what's going to be in the Holy of Holies in Kodesh HaKadoshim, in Aron HaEdos and Keruvim, there's going to be Ark of Testimony that contains the Aseret HaDibrot and the gold cover with the big cherubim. The Torah now turns its attention from the Kodesh HaKadoshim to the Kodesh, to the Holy. The Samta es HaShulchan. You will place that gold table, which we spoke about earlier. So you'll place that table michutz la pareiches, outside of the curtain. V'yes hameneira, and the candelabrum, which we talked about also in great detail, will be noichach HaShulchan. We will be perfectly opposite, in perfect parallel to the Shulchan, and they will be al tzela HaMishkan Teimana. So it will be, meaning the menorah, on the south side of the tabernacle. As Rashi will tell us, it's 2.5 cubits from the south wall, and then going across the room to the north side, v'hashulchan titein al tzela tzafin. The table will be placed on the north side, and this too is going to be 2.5 cubits from the north wall. The entire area, of course, is 10 cubits wide, as we learned. And then as we hear about a third article that's going to be in the outer chamber, namely, that is the golden altar. The golden altar is set forward, but this is going to have a discussion later on. We don't talk about that now. All of this is in the back half of the actual area, which is called the Kodesh. It's all within 5 cubits, 10 cubits long, 10 cubits long by 10 cubits wide. In this square, we have the menorah, the shulchan, and later on, we're going to talk about the golden table. So let's talk about this business with the menorah and the shulchan. The menorah which is placed corresponding perfectly parallel to the shulchan. So why is it that we have to have the shulchan and menorah corresponding to each other? So the Sefarno says this corresponds to Oirech Yomim B'Yamina. There's a pasuk that says that you have length of days on the right, and that refers to the Torah. The Torah is on the right of the Aron, not of the right of walking in, because you're facing west. So south is going to be on your left. However, if you were the Aron looking out, then the menorah would be on the right. So we say, Oirech Yamim, length of days, is B'Yamina, and that refers to the menorah. Chizkuni says that the Or Tamid, the continuous light, always comes from the south, especially on a delicious snowy day like we have today, and you think of how things are in the south, and you think of sun, and you think of fun, and you think of light, and then you come back to the dark, snowy reality that's here. But anyway, that's like the south is related to light, and because south is light, menorah is light, that's why it goes on the south. All right, very nice. Let's hear what Rashi has to say about this pasuk, verse 35, pasuk lamed hey, v'samta es hashulchan, you will place the table. So Rashi is going to tell us now, this is the order in which the furniture of the shulchan is arranged. Shulchan b'tzafain. The table is in the north, not right against the wall, but as I told you, mashuach min ha'kaisel ha'tzvayni, set forward from that northern wall, shtei ames u'mechza, 2.5 ames. And this way, of course, there's room for the Kohanim to walk when they have to place the showbread. If it was to be right against the wall, they wouldn't be able to walk there. So you have to be able to get around it. So there's room of 2.5 amot, which is a significant amount of space. An amma is 18 inches. Figure it out. It's not a small amount of space, enough for a person to walk around. Now, Rashi goes on to say, umenorah, but the candelabrum will be bedorim. It'll be on the south. On the south, right against the wall? Nope. Mishucha min ha'kaisel. It'll be set forward from the wall, hadreimi, from the south wall. This too, shtei ames u'mechza. And Rashi says, from here we can learn that the table and the shulchan were exactly corresponding to each other and how much space was in between them. And we can also learn about that area, that hollow, that space in the middle, Mizbech HaZov, the golden altar, which was placed in the middle of the Mishkan, perfectly corresponding to the Aron, is Nasun Keneged Avir Shebein Shulchan HaMenorah. That's placed in the space between the Shulchan on the north side and the Menorah on the left side. And it's Meshuach Kima Klapi Mizrach. It's not set actually in between. So you have Shulchan, Mizbeach, Menorah, but rather you have Shulchan, you have Menorah, and then set forward, that's where you have the Mizbeach Hazav, like a triangle. The Kulam, and all of these, Nesunim min hachatzi hamishkan lefnim. The entire room is 20 amot long. They're all on the back half, which is 10 amot wide, or 10 amot long. Ketzad. The length of the Mishkan from the door up to the curtain we started talking about today, Esrim Amma, that's 20 Amos. These artifacts, the holy artifacts, altar table and candelabrum, Mishuchim min HaPesach letzad ma'irav Eser Amos. You first come into the area called Kodesh, there's an empty space of 10 Amot set forward. And then after 10 Amot begins the placement of these holy artifacts, as we have discussed. So now we're going to learn about the Shulchan and the Menorah. That's what the Psukim talk about. And we're going to find something very interesting, that this schematic of Shulchan and Menorah is actually relevant in today's day and age, where you want to sit and shul, where you want to face. Because Menorah on the north side and Shulchan, Menorah on the south side, and Shulchan on the north, this has a lot to do with your mazel and with your fortuitous blessings, the kind of blessings that you are going to be able to open and download for yourselves. Listen to this. Page Reish Chav Gimel.
I may have to move spots.
You may have to move spots. It may be too late for you. This is a Gemara. We begin with a quote from a Gemara in Maseches Bava Basra. in the third tome of the three major Talmudic tomes, on page 25b, the Gemara makes the following surprising statement. Haroitze sheyachkim, if you want to get wise, yadrim. So kind of lean south. Sheyashir, if you want to get rich, yatzpin, lean north. V'simonach, what's the simon? How do you know if moving south gives you wisdom and moving north gives you wealth? So he says simple. Shulchan b'tzafain, the gold table piled high with bread, representing prosperity, is on the north, and menorah, the candelabra, which represents the light of Torah, b'darim. All right, that's what the Gemara says. You figure out where you want to sit, Mishal. Now, Lafi divrei Chazal elu, according to these words of our sages, you want both? It doesn't say haroitze shtayim. This is the battle of the titans. You got to make up. What do you want? You want wealth or you want wisdom? You tell a little story of a rabbi who was in the middle of giving a sermon and a genie popped out of a bottle. Don't ask how the bottle got to him, why he had a bottle, but that's the story that's told. And the genie said, you have one wish, make it fast, you have 30 seconds. And the rabbi thought and thought and thought. And the genie says, 10 seconds left. You want wealth or you want wisdom? The rabbi is thinking, my whole life I pursued wisdom. Wisdom, he says, wisdom. The genie disappears in a flash, and there's a strange light that overcomes the rabbi, and the whole congregation is sitting there expectantly. And they said, Rabbi, now that you got wisdom, tell us something wise, something insightful. The rabbi thinks for a long time. He says, I should have taken the money. Lefi divrei Chazal elu, the Rebbe's commentary begins according to these words of our sages. Sha'ashulchan misamel es ha'oisher hagashmi, that the table is a paradigm for wealth. U'menorah, and the candelabra, misamelas, is emblematic of Chochmas HaTorah, of the wisdom of Torah, of course. Nitin levayer es das HaRambam. The Rebbe said we might be able to explain something very unusual that the Rambam says. The Rambam writes this in Hilchos Beis HaBechira in the 3rd chapter in the 12th halacha. The Rambam, very, very unusually, divides between the placement of the menorah and the placement of the shulchan. He says like this. According to the Rambam, the shulchan is oimed le'oirach ha'heichel. The shulchan is placed, it sits or it lies at the length, not at the width, at the length of the Mishkan. And that means that its two ends, the shulchan was rectangle, of course, the two ends are mimizrach l'mayrev, from east to west. The Mishkan is a rectangle. Right. It's a rectangle. 30 amot long, 10 amot wide. That's a big time rectangle. On the west end is the Holy of Holies. On the east end is the screen, which we're going to talk about right after this, the next psukim, and the entrance. So the length of the Mishkan lies east-west. And he says the shulchan should be placed east-west. The shulchan is also a rectangle. So the shulchan is placed east-west. The menorah does not have much depth to it, a lot of width to it, right? It's a candelabra. So he says that the menorah should be stood l'roichav ha'heichel, to the width of the heichel. This is the opinion of the Rambam. Many others disagree. And the Rambam says that therefore the menorah, at its longest, if you will, branch span, will be north-south. So the shulchan is east-west, the menorah is north-south. Bein ma'ariv ha'heichel lemizrachi, between the west side and the east side, there's a difference of holiness. We learned, that's how we started learning today. We learned in the beginning that there was a side, well, I should say a third, that was designated as the Holy of Holies. Which third was that? Which side was it on? The west. How about the east? The east is where you entered. So if somebody would say to you, what's the holiest side of this rectangle? What would the obvious answer be? The west side. What's the least holy of the holy? Well, the least holy is right when you come in. There's no shulchan menorah. It's just the empty area. So it goes in grades. There's a gradation from east to west. You're moving west. The closer you get to west, the closer you're coming to holiness. So, kichol.
So why would the menorah be on the west side, extreme west?
The menorah isn't on the west any more than the shulchan is on the west. The menorah was on the south side. The shulchan was on the north side. Both were set back to the west. Both were set back. The mizbeach is also set back to the west. The point we're making is that the Rambam says that the menorah was lying or sitting or laying or placed in the direction that it was
East-west.
not east-west, north-south. And the shulchan was east-west.
That can't be though, because then they're not parallel to each other.
No, they're not.
Well,
they're like this.
they're not going to be perfectly parallel anyway because they're not the same length.
No, I get that, but at least they would be parallel. Whereas
Well,
They're-
the
Rambam's
placement
right,
is
then
parallel.
Then they're perpendicular.
They're not perpendicular in placement. They're perpendicular in the way they're laying.
Laying, yeah.
Right. But they are perfectly parallel to each other. If you had to draw an X on the ground, you'll be here,
get
and an
it,
X on the
yes.
ground. So
Yeah.
the two X's were perfectly, the epicenter of each one was perfectly
The
parallel.
Torah says they're facing each other. So
Facing each other doesn't mean that they're exactly
Parallel.
placed the same way. Clearly, the Rambam says no.
Okay, all right.
It's a big chiddush. This is a Rambam thing, okay? But the Rebbe comes along all these years later, and this is part of a manuscript, a fascinating manuscript called Rishimas HaMenorah, the manuscript of the menorah. With many pages of writing that the Rebbe authored in the early 30s, in which he discusses the menorah and the Beis HaMikdash. Fascinating insights. Many of them are very, very deep and nuanced and technical. So anyway, the point is, menorah lies north-south. Shulchan lies east-west. The Rebbe says, Mishkanically speaking, what's the difference between east-west and north-south? Mishkanically speaking, east-west is a difference in holiness. North-south is no difference. It doesn't say the menorah is any holier than the shulchan. The Aron is holier than the shulchan and the menorah. But the menorah or shulchan, one doesn't say is holier than the other. From here we can derive like this. HaShulchan sha'amad mimizrach l'mayrav. The shulchan which was placed east-west. Haya beidargis kedusha shoynes. It had levels of holiness. It had to have levels of holiness. Because the bread that was on the east side was further from the west side or from the Holy of Holies. Ilu ha-menorah, but the menorah which was not placed east-west, but the menorah that was placed north-south, so there was no light or no branch or no lamp that was any closer to the Aron Kodesh. Understand? In other words, Sharsa b'chol chalkei al mida achida shel kedusha. All 7 lamps are equally sanctified. Not all 12 breads are, but all 7 lamps are. Hasiba l'kach, the reason. Shulchan misamel oisher gashmi. The table is a paradigm of material wealth. More broadly speaking, it represents our service to Hashem that is materially focused. Therefore, Amad HaShulchan, the Shulchan has to stand, mimizrach l'mayrav, as if to say to you, Kach sheyayu havdelim b'kdushasei. Not all material pursuit is equally holy. Some material pursuit is more sacred, more holy. All aren't perhaps necessary, because if it's not necessary, you shouldn't be doing it. But you cannot say that all material pursuit is equally important. And you certainly can't say it's equal on the level of devotion and dedication to God. It depends according to what the person is doing and how much effort they're investing in it. However, when it comes to the menorah which represents the wisdom of Torah, You cannot say this part of Torah is holier than that part of Torah. You're studying this part of Torah, this is good. You must be very close to God. That part of Torah, this is like on the east end. It's not so holy. It's not so sacred. The menorah is placed south-north in a way that represents no distinction between its holiness. In the holiness of Torah, you cannot make distinctions between Dag and Shenis. Torah hi tamid, Torah is Hashem. The Torah is always God's Torah. Whether you're learning Anochi Hashem Elikecha or Achos Lutan Timna, it doesn't make a difference which words of Torah. The Torah is the Torah is the Torah, equally holy. And that's a emet muchletet, it's absolute truth. The Torah is not negotiable, no portion of it. And therefore, Rambam says the menorah, representing holiness and wisdom of Torah, would have to be placed not east-west, representing a difference or grade in holiness, but rather south-north, representing all different candles, flames, branches, because all of them equally represent the absolute truth of Hashem, and all of them bring us close to Hashem, representing the Torah. And so as long as you're studying Torah...
Position as opposed to placement is very different.
I think the most important thing...
ahead of the holiest in the West, as opposed to wealth.
We don't hear that. We hear actually there has to be corresponding. And the Rebbe, on a different occasion, and the same manuscript says that you have to have it parallel because it says HaChacham Nikar B'Maisav. The Torah you study has to be reflected in the way you live your life. So the way your material pursuit has to be reflective of the way you study Torah. A person can say, I study Torah, I'm very holy in shul, but you see me in the office. Oh, I'm a tiger. I'm a monster in the office. No good. No good, because our material pursuit has to parallel or mirror our spiritual pursuit. But in material pursuit, there are levels of holiness. In Torah, all of it is seen as one and the same, or as equal. And with this, we'll move forward.